And also recently, this month, um, the Venezuelan government held a referendum, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Citizens voted whether or not to include the region in their country and give them citizenship. Is that legal? I mean, was that because the dispute is ongoing? The country doesn't belong to them yet. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
obviously to keep them favor.
Guyana filed a petition before the International Court of Justice where the dispute exists
Hmm.
since 2018 when the Guyana took them to the World Court. And Guyana took them to the World Court out of a process of other measures aiming at resolving the dispute failing. 2018 took to the World Court. So the matter been before the World Court. And so after the referendum was announced, Guyana asked the World Court to intervene. The World Court held a hearing. The World Court made a judgment on December 1. The World Court said, Venezuela, you are not allowed to do anything to alter the status quo of the Essequibo until the World Court's final judgment. They ignored the World Court. They claim that since the World Court did not specifically tell them, don't hold the referendum,
Yes.
they'll hold the referendum. So they held the referendum, and the referendum with 5 questions was designed, the way the questions are framed, designed to legitimize the intent to annex.
Yes, yes, yes.
One referendum item said, do you agree that Venezuela should not have anything to do with the ICJ on this matter?
Yes.
What the adversary is going to say yes.
Yes.
Do you agree that we should create a new state out of the Essequibo? They have for years called the Essequibo Zona en Reclamación, zone to be reclaimed.
Yes.
Now, as a result of the referendum, they've said, well, it's now a new state. Essequibo is a state, the 24th state of Venezuela.
Venezuela, right.
A state called Guyana Essequiba. We're going to give people in Guyana Essequiba our identity cards. As a matter of fact, there's a hilarious, the internet, people do all sorts of creative things. Somebody sent me last week an identity card for Maduro, dated 1899,
yes.
the year of the arbitral war.
Yes.
He's a citizen of Guyana.
Yes.
So they're proceeding on the margins of the international legal regime, where they're permitted to do things within Venezuela,
yes,
under their law. But it will be crossing the line to act on those things going into another country. And that's where the anxiety levels are raised.
Right.
Will they now proceed beyond what the referendum and the declarations have been to implement the declaration? They've begun some of that implementation. They've established a new map, Venezuela.
Wow. Yes.
They have put in the budget for 2024 funding for this 24th state. They've set up an administrative capital for the new state in an adjoining state of Bolivar. But if they were to make a physical move into the territory of Guyana, then is where they would be triggering total obvious violation of international law.
But I mean, you can also look at that move as like an election tactic for Maduro.
Surely is.
Yes.
It surely is.
I mean, very similar to Trump. Sorry to say.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The reality is that the Essequibo issue has long been a political football in Venezuelan politics, even before Maduro.
Yes, yes.
Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, used it as a political football, but he also played it down for many years in the context of his own domestic politics. But the combination of the recognition of this powerful new petro wealth and
Yes,
Maduro's own intent to stay in power. He's now using that political football
of course.
because 2024 will be elections for the presidential level and 2025 will be elections for the National Assembly. He wants to be able to use this as a national gathering sentiment in support of his party.
Indeed.
Uh, it's no coincidence that people in the political opposition who did not support the referendum have been in hot water. They've announced the arrest of, I think, a little over 14 members of the opposition who they claim undermined the national sovereignty by being opposed to the referendum. I mean, if you say you're a free country, people can oppose or support a referendum.
Yes, yes.
So major figures who oppose the referendum are now anti-nationalists. They are treason. They've committed treason.
Wow. Okay. This is huge. This is
It is.
huge.
It is.
Now, maybe the last question. In your latest article, you focus on Venezuela as psychologically bullying Guyana, which obviously is what it's doing with its military maneuvers and, planning to build bases near the border. I mean, what is Guyana doing now today, right? To to put a stop to this. I mean, and basically, what's the answer? What is the answer?
Well,
Because if
let me answer that. Let me answer that in
yeah.
let me answer that in two ways. Guyana can only do what Guyana can do. And part of what Guyana can do and has begun to do is to reach out to partners.
Yes.
Diplomatically and militarily.
Yes.
Some of those partners are going to be supporting and have begun to support Guyana, not because they love Guyana, but because they have their own interests to protect.
Yes, truly.
Let me tell you about two of those partners. One of those partners that has interest to protect is Brazil.
Yes. Okay.
Brazil has a border with every South American country except Chile and Ecuador. Some of those countries that have borders with Brazil are not happy with those borders. Would you imagine what would happen if Brazil were to allow that border with Venezuela and Guyana to be changed, especially changed with force? It would be opening a Pandora's box to other South American countries to say, well, we want to look at our border with you, Mr. Brazil. Brazil will not, and they have made it quite clear, will not permit changing of borders because, and here's another national interest Brazil consideration. I think I mentioned to you that 1899 arbitral award also was the basis of a tri-junction agreement between Brazil, Guyana, and Venezuela.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you change the Venezuela-Guyana border, you have to change the Brazil-Venezuela border. You have to change the Brazil-Guyana border.
Logically, yes.
There are national interest reasons that Brazil would want not to have any border changes.
Indeed, yes.
Here's another thing about Brazil as a partner. Brazil is one of two places from which Venezuela can launch a military attack into Guyana. There's a state in Venezuela called Bolivar.
Yes.
That adjoins Guyana. They can use that state to send armed forces into Guyana.
Okay. Yes.
So that state and that part of Guyana, thick jungle, doesn't have the road access that would allow them to send an army across the border. But there's another state in Brazil called Roraima. That state can be used to access and get to Guyana. Brazil has said we are not going to permit Venezuela to use our Roraima state to get to
Okay.
Guyana.
Yes.
And Brazil has sent a reinforcement to Roraima to say to the Venezuelans, this too shall not pass. So Guyana has been
Yes.
using its friends network.
Mm,
One of those friends network members is called United States of America.
of course. Yes.
Last week, matter of fact, the 7th of this month, exactly last week, United States and Guyana have begun joint flights, military flights. United States made an announcement. Look, we just let you know that we have a strong partnership with Guyana, and part of that is because of the oil.
Of course.
So
Actually.
the United States. And so part of my answer to you is that Guyana cannot by itself repel.
Yes, of
So
course.
Guyana has been depending upon its partners, diplomatic and military, depending on the CARICOM support, depending on the Commonwealth support, depending on the Organization of American States support to kind of keep Venezuela at bay.
Yes. Okay. So that means all of this gives Venezuela reason to pause, to quit, to reconsider their actions.
Yep.
Excellent.
Now, I don't anticipate they will quit pushing, but I am hopeful and I have every reason to believe that it will not become physical military aggression.
Indeed. Indeed. Excellent. Well, that's a very positive note to end on. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some research, but I've learned so much more from you. So
Okay. All righty.
I'm truly grateful.